Hey, folks, welcome back to Soaring Profits. Look at the smiles on these faces. That's a couple handsome fellas right there.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing this a little bit later than we kind of expected this evening, folks, but we wanted to get a little bit of research and that sort of thing kind of compiled for you. We had a few little topics that we want to touch base on and talk about, but one of the big things that I'm watching and seeing in my personal life, seeing in the stock market, and now seeing in the media is food shortages. And as somebody who's lived in Canada all my life, I'm a middle class white dude. I've never had a problem with trying to find my next meal, and it's very weird. I've watched food pricing over the last little while. In a lot of ways, I've related it back to the gas shortages, the diesel pricing, all of that, which has just gone exponentially up, right? Like if you folks are filling up your tank, you're getting crunched right now. But the more and more I get digging into this and trying to figure out the why behind all these things, it's becoming a little bit more and more scary. So I've got a couple of clips here I want to kind of run you through. And the first one is kind of basically just generally talking about the global food crisis and where we're at. Just give me a second. Let me pull this up for you guys. This, what we're talking about in this situation is just the clip will show kind of what we're talking about. Then I want to show the actual charting on it and why I'm concerned. Let's see here.
Isn't eating so that his children have enough food. He says he and his family live like ants or fish. We eat what we can find. Experts warn that in the months ahead, food is going to be harder to find in many more nations. A perfect storm of several problems is decimating the world food supply. It's being called the biggest food crisis since World War II. An estimated 285 million people face starvation.
So just a second there, as we're going through, there's a couple things I want to bring up here. Those of you who know your history, World War II and the aftermath of World War II was basically a catastrophic food shortage for the people of Europe. Like it was unbelievable. If you think of what Stalin did, and especially in the Ukraine, like you go back to the history of the Ukraine and the Russians, the Soviets at the time, they literally went into the Ukraine, stole all their food, and basically starved 100 million people to death. So for this news agency, CBN News, to be talking about this, and Google it yourself. Like we're not here to be, your be all end all. This is something that we're trying to have, again, as James talks about all the time, is that table talk conversation.
Yeah.
But this is getting kind of scary, right? When you have 285 million people that are at the cusp, and that's just, I would argue that's Africa, right?
So you're kind of talking about the canary in the mine shaft. So back in the day when, before I was born, thanks a lot, Pat. They used to use canaries when they'd go into the mine shaft, and if the canary died, they knew they had to get out of the mine shaft right away. It was kind of their early warning system. And if you go to like these impoverished places that frankly are already starving, like they already don't have enough food, but if it becomes to the point that it's a food crisis where you're talking 95% of people don't have food, because that's not the norm, that's kind of a canary thing. That's kind of so we are pulling back food from our poorest so that we can survive, right? So, but if you...
We're going to get to that even.
Right.
Let's continue this a little bit longer, because one of the things that they're bringing up here, and again, I'm not a huge proponent of the war in Ukraine. We've talked about this. There's a lot of other things going on. Yes, terrible things are happening in Ukraine, but I also think that there's a lot more to the story that we're not getting. Let's continue this clip, and then we can jump in there again.
The head of the World Food Program, former South Carolina Governor David Beasley, says the world food supply already faced a catastrophe before the war in Ukraine.
We're so short of funds already, and now with Ukraine, we've got 50% rations for people, for example, in Yemen. Niger, 50% rations. Chad, 50% rations. And 50% don't have anything. Those who are in extreme need.
In the U.S., Americans have seen food costs rise almost 10% over last year, the steepest increase.
So 10% was months ago even.
I think it's more than 10% now.
100%. Like we're seeing right now that the CPI index, and this is where I talk to you guys. This is how it all links. So we've been talking about inflation and the rise of inflation and what inflation means. This is where it hits. When you have inflation running the way that it is, and gas prices, fuel prices, all of these things that are being affected by this, you now see it at your table. You now see it where you, instead of buying the premium product, you have to go down to the no-name product, because you're buying your 10 staples that used to cost you $100. Well, now you're going, my 10 staples are now costing me $150, and I'm not buying those extra goodies. So those little things that I enjoy.
No more Dijon mustard.
Right. Or Dijon ketchup if you are, so if you had, say, $1 million.
No, you're absolutely right. Like even as a bachelor myself, buying my own little bit of groceries, they have doubled. I'm not buying anything new. Nothing different. Now I buy name brand things, but still, definitely $30-$40 more than normal, which is crazy for me.
When your name brand product, I'm gonna challenge you over the next 6 to 8 months. I want you to watch to see the sizings of your name brand products.
Oh yeah, they've already gotten, the packaging hasn't changed, but what's inside them is slightly smaller, for sure.
And now you're going to start to see the packaging change.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, a lot of times they change. I have noticed in the past that they will change the color or the shape of the package, so that you don't notice that it doesn't weigh as much.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's just a new package, brand new package. Sometimes it even says that on it.
Yes.
But it really is less inside it.
Right.
Yeah. Chips, for example, chips are less.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's funny. My daughter growing up, she used to go around and she'd grab like the bag of chips. It was like, are you poor? Like, what are you doing, kid? But she'd be like, oh, no, this one's got more in it. And I'm like, the robot couldn't tell when it was pouring it, but the 6-year-old could, right? I thought
but the 6-year-old has the touch.
The wherewithal. But
yeah,
let's continue this here. And there's a couple things that I want to chat about, and we'll continue through it.
Sure.
In 40 years, and experts predict it will lead to an increase in malnutrition among America's poor. In the developing world, however, it's become a matter of life and death. Russia and Ukraine together produce almost 1/3 of the world's wheat, but Ukrainian farmers have been sidelined by the war, and Russia has banned exports.
They've got to be planting again and harvesting again. If they don't, then you're going to have a global supply problem.
And the war in Ukraine is only the latest of many problems to hit the world food supply. Food prices were already high from soaring inflation and fuel costs. Fertilizer prices are now 40% higher than a month ago before the invasion of Ukraine, which along with high fuel prices makes it too expensive for some farmers to plant crops this year.
We've never seen these type of increases in fertilizer. You're talking 300-400% increases in a 14-month period.
Add to that a drought that damaged this spring's U.S. winter wheat harvest.
Well, hang on a second here.
Yeah, we're not there, but it doesn't really explain why all of a sudden fertilizer would be up 40%. Like what has changed in fertilizer?
What is fertilizer?
Well, I can't remember.
Right. So it's nitrate. Like
nitrates.
It's a chemical component, right?
Right.
That we, as now industrial agriculture, big agriculture, now goes out and has sold this for the last 100 years to farmers, that you used to take your cow poop and you spread it on your field, and then you go and plant the seeds that you got the year before. I'm just going off the accent of the guy that
That was good. It was good. Yeah.
Well, just from down in North Carolina.
Down now.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we've went now is we've went to these large agricultural centers and said, teach me, right? And we've let science lose the way that we actually farm. Okay.
Right.
That's great. We've had great yields all these years until you don't. The next thing I want to bring up here, and again, this is a little bit long-winded, but I'm hoping to kind of show people how the market ties into everything that we talk about, right? So the chart I'm going to pull up here is wheat prices over the last little while. Okay. So this here is the last, well, from 2020 wheat prices. This is the Great Recession, right? This is COVID in March. Boom. But why didn't it really tank? Well, it's food.
Yeah.
Right?
People are still buying food.
Right.
They still need it.
So we just kind of trend along here, just an upward trend. This is basically just going along with inflation, right?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we get right here, and then what do we have? It runs away. Okay. So what do we have happen here in February of 2022? Yeah, we got a war. We got a war that pops off. Wild.
Yeah.
Crazy shit starts happening. And then people click in and they're like, hey, yeah, this is going to affect food. Okay. This is where you can see the pricing for all of you soaring profiteers out there, you profiteers. You folks now can chart this and you can see that these are now higher lows, right? Higher highs. This is now a new upward trend.
Yeah. It's bouncing off a whole new line.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect support here right now, and we're going to continue back up to all-time highs. What does that do for food pricing? Okay. That's problematic. The next thing that we have here, and this is the really scary shit that bothers me, is there's got to be a quicker way to do this because I feel like I've got to hit like 9 things to get over here. But anyways, we've talked about the guys at Davos at the World Economic Forum. And this is a meeting of the world's greatest minds in regards to social planning and economic planning for the next year. And this is in Davos, Switzerland, where you have all of these people flying on their private jets, tell us how bad we are for driving cars, and set up their plan for the next number of years. Well, they are, over the last month here, they've been meeting, and they are saying that this food crisis could last 2 more years without safe corridor. Now, I'm not a Chicken Little type person. You've known me. I've had some crazy tin hat things that I've thought about.
Yeah.
But not one of them has ever been, are you going to be able to eat?
No.
Right.
No. Well, the thoughts never crossed my mind because I've never lived through a time that you couldn't eat. Like, there's always been groceries in the grocery store.
This is kind of getting to the point where you're going to have that as a bit of a concern now. And the reason I say that is that we're going through a cultural shift. And if you think that when you go and you fill up at the gas tank for, I think it was $2.20 today, $2.20 a liter is what I got today. Okay.
Yeah.
Our normal gas prices, if you had said 2 years ago, even before COVID, $1.10 was like astronomical. We're like, hey.
Oh, I remember we got upset when it went over $1. People were freaking out and saying they're going to stop driving and that we should pick a day and no one buy gas or something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all of a sudden now it's at $2.20 and nobody's saying anything. We're just buying.
Not a word. Yeah.
Right. So what's happening is that you're going through a pain point right now in society where you're getting squeezed out economically. This is one, to be able to sop up that liquidity in the market, to dry up all of that stimulus that is causing inflation, right?
Right.
And you and I, before we started here, we did a little deep dive into Keynesian economics, right?
Yes.
And Keynesian economics, for you guys that are out there, you folks that are listening to us, take the 10 seconds and Google it. Keynesian economics is a system in which a perpetual money source funds the government through to the society, through to the government again. It's just this cyclical approach to debt. And we took on Keynesian economics over the last 40 years in the United States when we went away from the gold standard. And the concept is the more money we print, the better we are because people have more money. Well, that doesn't work because of this economic thing called inflation. And inflation takes all your money away from you. It just kills it. It sops it all up, takes it away and goes, oh, that value? No more. And that's where we're at right now. So food is one of those things that when you get into this Keynesian cycle of inflation, you can't feed people in Africa for pennies a day. You guys all remember it as kids, right? It's like
Oh, yeah.
for a cup
Price
of
of a cup of coffee.
right?
Yeah.
For a
Mhm.
cup of coffee a day, you
Yeah.
can feed, clothe, and educate a kid in the South Sudan.
Right.
Not with inflation,
No.
right? So what's happening is that you have
Not only
inflation.
that is with inflation, you don't have money to do that.
Isn't that a double-edged sword?
Yeah.
Right. The charity
Mhm.
work that people are willing to do now, they don't have it to do.
Yeah.
So you have this situation where Keynesian economics comes in and creates inflation through government stimulation, and then it cycles through, and you have this debt process. So this is where I'm a little bit scary, and it's funny because I had this conversation with my family over the last couple of days, and I'm like, I'm really kind of concerned that we've got to be a little bit leaner in our spending, and they're all like,
Right.
haha, yeah, sure,
We
you
got
bought a
all kinds
boat,
of money. You bought a boat.
right? So, but I'm
Yeah.
really starting to become a little bit concerned about what this means. Where do we
Yeah.
go from here? And how do we make it through this? Like, it's kind of at the point where you want a generator in your backyard. Like, I know all of you folks that are watching this, because a lot of you guys are local to us. You guys went through the storm the other day, the tornado that we had.
Right. Yeah.
So
I had a lot of friends 5 days without power, 5 days without it being able to cook food or keep food fresh.
okay, so
Yeah.
now if you can't feed people, so
Mhm.
here's the Armageddon of it all. You can't feed people because it's too expensive to feed people. Are hungry people happy people?
No.
No. So they're not
No.
happy people.
They're desperate people.
They're desperate people. So
Mhm.
now when you have desperate, unhappy people, what do? Well, social unrest becomes a thing.
Mhm.
And in states of social unrest, we can go back to like the Black Lives Matter riots.
Oh, please
You
do.
can any riots you want. First
Yeah.
thing to go, you get fires, you get blackouts, you get all of these problems. Okay.
Mhm.
We did 5 days because of hydro shutdowns. Well, if you have people that can't eat, what do you think the grid looks like? What do you think all of these things look like? Well, they start to shut down, right? So now you need a generator. Now you need a food source. Now you need a water source. Now you need all of these things. And I'm not saying like you're planning for the end of the world here. Like I am putting the hat on.
Well, our Canadian government and our Ontario government has been, I'd say, for the last 2 years, maybe longer, sending messages over the airwaves and TV that we should have, what is it, 5 days worth of water and food
Yeah.
ready to go, and medicine and stuff like that, so that in the event of a catastrophic event,
Right.
that you could survive for 5 days. And they've been pushing this for the last, I don't know, 2 years, maybe 3 years, could be longer. But until you're faced with it, like the power outage, like I was fortunate, I was only 24 hours, but other people really were faced with it. And we had a generator shortage where we live. You
Yep.
couldn't buy a generator anywhere.
Right.
There was lots of things that you couldn't buy. Food shortages, because, and you know what? Boggled my mind. I had no idea, wasn't even thinking of it. Well, a lot of our grocery stores didn't have power for 5 days. Well, they can't sell that food. It's all thrown away. Every single one of it. Not only that, they have to have a day or two of cleaning, because all that creates bacteria. So a lot of our grocery stores, we had, I don't know, 4 days after it was all over, we couldn't get food,
Right.
like groceries.
Yeah.
So
even
it
those
just,
cycles,
like you said, yeah,
those food that were thrown out, like if you go into the frozen food section at your grocery store and you
Yeah.
go in there, it's McCain pizzas, it's fries, it's all those things, right?
milk, cheese, yeah,
Right. So those things there, those are commodities that are based
Mhm.
off your wheat prices. You need wheat to make the flour. You need, sorry, I'm just getting a message here coming in.
they talked about corn syrup, how corn syrup is in a lot of the processed foods that we have every day. And so a shortage of corn syrup. Sorry, that was my light. Shortage of corn syrup.
Yeah. Think
Armageddon, the sky is falling.
Think of
No,
all the
but
high fructose stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Sodas, I believe, have corn syrup too. But also there's it's hidden in a lot of foods that produce. Now, I'm more of a real food kind of guy because that's what I eat
What's
now.
your
So
real food to eat?
well, I like lettuce and carrots and tomatoes and all that stuff is grown. And so without fertilizer, for tomatoes are impossible to grow without fertilizer, right? Uh, so there's different
What about
things that,
what about your eggs in the morning?
oh, I have a lot of eggs. Yeah, and they all eat
Right.
corn. All the chickens eat corn.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you see how this cycles? So that when you
Oh
see
yeah.
prices doing one of these exponential runs, it affects everything. It
Right.
affects everything.
For
That's what I'm
sure.
saying, guys. That learn this technical analysis, you can start applying this to the real world around you, and have just kind of a little bit deeper understanding of how it all works. And again, we're not here today like throwing up the flag like, oh no, the sky is falling, that sort of thing. But I'm not going to lie, it's the first time in my life as an adult that, or even my family, and having the conversations with them, my parents, well, my dad's passed away, but my mother, who's 69 years old, uh, she's never had a real problem with food, right? Like, so these are very different times where all of a sudden we're having concerns where, what if? We've
Yeah.
never had that before, ever,
No. No.
ever. This is very different. So.
No, it would be very different if we started going to the grocery store and couldn't find food and what that would look like on the, but the other impact that that we haven't discussed is the fact that for 5 days there were no grocery stores open. There was no
Right.
Tim Hortons open. There was no gas stations open. A friend of mine who works at a dentist office, it wasn't open because there's no power going to it.
Yeah.
None of these people got paid for a week.
Right.
That is literally most of our city didn't get paid for a week.
Yeah.
Well, you just took out a big pile of money out of the economy as well as taking away the food and all that. So on a small, like that power, just getting back to the power thing, that small event, which was a storm that lasted 20 minutes, I believe, has caused a rippling effect that we're still kind of getting out of. And if you start looking at the bigger events where they're talking about how there's droughts in the States, I believe, that are causing grain shortages and stuff like that. And now they're talking about, we have to look into why this fertilizer thing, that does not make sense to me. Why would it go up 40%? I don't understand. There must be a reason. It must be a fuel source or something. But that is a major thing because you're right. That is what all farmers use now. And if you can't afford to buy the fertilizer for your crops aren't going to grow because the way your crops are designed now to use fertilizer. I was talking to a farmer quite a while ago, but he was talking about when he started farming. He was an old farmer. He said when he started farming, you would grow your crop, you would harvest the seed, you would dry that seed and keep it aside, and then you would sell your product, and then you'd use that seed, blah, blah, blah. But then they started promoting the seed that didn't create seeds because it was a hardier plant that would survive bugs, it would survive drought, it would survive more things. Maybe not drought. That might be a thing I just made up. But the fallback is it doesn't produce seeds. Right. So therefore, you're going to have a hardier seed and it's going to grow more crops, but you got to come to us every time and buy more seed. Well, that's something farmers had to end up doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, there's lawsuits about farmers that had fields that they did not buy these non-germinating seeds.
Yeah.
In which the seed from a neighbor's crop blew in, and that they germed it back to that specific seed type, and that they were sued for millions and millions and millions of dollars for intellectual property.
We're stealing from them. Yeah. And won. As I recall, they won.
And they won. Yeah.
Yeah. One, because we're talking about a big, huge, the corporation that I don't want to name right now is a huge corporation against a farmer who usually stands alone. It was an interesting case because it would be like me painting my house. And when I'm painting my house, the wind sprays some of the paint onto my neighbor's house. And then I go get a lawyer and go, he's got my paint on his house. That's my paint.
Yeah.
He owes me money now. And
Right.
that's what they were suing about.
Yeah. But
It wasn't necessarily that the whole field had it. It was
No.
just that part of the field had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in some cases, they made them rip out the whole field.
Well, and that's the thing, is that it was about killing the small time farmer. Right.
Yeah.
Is that
Mhm.
unless you're on team big agri, you're not in the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've had successes that way, where we've had the most food, least nutrition, but the most food that a society has ever had. Right.
Yeah.
Food weight, like this is where I always talk, like when people are like, well, but communism doesn't seem that bad. And I'm like, when you go to a grocery store in communism, right? There's the old saying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You wait for bread, right?
Well,
in America, bread
yeah.
waits for you, right? So it's
Yeah.
different. Like there, you go and you stand in a bread line, and somebody
Mhm.
hands you a bread and a loaf, and that's your meal for the day. In
Yeah.
communism, because everybody gets one. As we're here in the capitalist hell of America, bread wait on shelf for you.
For as long as you want, because it'll last for literally
And
ever.
how many types of bread do you want?
Yeah, you can get any
Right.
kind you want.
That's
Oh,
right.
absolutely. Yeah, our bread
Now-
dial is almost as big as a store in Cuba.
Right. Well, it's funny. I was watching
Yeah.
something the other day about a couple Cuban nationals, and they had escaped to Florida, into Miami, I
Right.
guess, right? And they went to a Walmart, and their family was filming them as they were looking around. And they walked in, and it was just like
Yeah,
the rows of food, the rows
Right.
of clothing, and they were just like, yeah, you can buy anything you want. And they're like,
yeah.
what do you mean?
What?
Like
Yeah.
so foreign. And we take that
Yeah.
for granted. But this is the thing.
Totally.
This is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain to people. You can't. You cannot
Yeah.
take this shit for granted, because it's only 50 years in the making. This is
Mhm.
only 50 years old. The
That
Walton,
makes it so easy. Yeah.
the Walton family invented this, right? They didn't have this before. Like it was little small shops, and you went and you bartered. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Keynesian theory has created the most wealth in the world. It's just fallen apart now.
My dad talks about when you'd go shopping when he was younger. He talks about you'd go to the fish guy and you buy your fish, and then you go down the street to the bread guy and you buy your bread, and then you go down to the street to. There was no like one stop for everything. Yeah.
Right.
But getting back to Cuba, so I went to Cuba, and I don't know if you know, I'm a bit of a talker, so I got to know the locals a bit in my resort, and very intelligent, wonderful people. And so the big thing was my friends and I would like to go to this one spot, and we eat chicken wings. Love the chicken wings. Best chicken wings I've ever tasted. They were amazing. So I'm eating the chicken wings. I'm like, you guys have the best chicken. Like, what's going on? And
Score.
she's like, to tell you the truth, I've never tasted them. I'm like, what do you mean? They're here. Well, we're not allowed to eat the food. And also, we can't get chicken in the grocery store. Like, our grocery stores don't have chicken in it. And if they do, they go real quick. So, and then we got kind of talking about, because we had at a resort, you have all kinds of different foods, all kinds of different, and at the time that I was there, they were actually suffering food shortages themselves. And I was like, it just boggled my mind that this lady was like leaving her family under a food shortage and serving food in a place that has these big fat guys cruising in, just eating them like, I'm gonna go get me another plate of chicken wings, you know? Yeah, it was. I didn't do anything about it because I'm an awful person, but I tipped really well.
Yeah, $5 goes a long way down there. Right?
Yeah, no, but you're absolutely right. Like that was the difference. So that was because Cuba, as far as I know, is a communist country, and here I was in the middle of Cuba in this very opulent resort. It was beautiful, and the people who were serving us food didn't have food or the proper resources for food. It's just wild.
Welcome to communism.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you know, we have, I wouldn't say the poorest of poor, it's definitely would struggle, especially now with the prices. But
See, that's the
if
kicker.
if you work at Tim Hortons or you work and you have a full-time job, you're able to feed yourself, right?
Oh, I lost you there for a second, pal. Try
Oh,
again.
I was just saying, if you worked at Tim Hortons or like a gas station, any kind of full-time minimum wage job, you can still, to a certain extent, feed yourself. There's still, at this point, But if the prices keep on climbing,
I wouldn't want to try.
I wouldn't want to try.
Like I
No.
look at it now is that, you know, I'm 6-figure salary, rentals on top of that, excellent income, with all the things that we do. When I go to the grocery cart and I go,
Yeah.
$400.
Yeah.
What did I get?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So and that's just, you know, for 3. You get a family of 5, 6, 7, or 8.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine back in the day feeding my family of 4, especially the way I ate. Holy cow. Like now, when my son comes home, I get all excited. So I buy like extras and stuff, and I'm at 150, $160, which to me just blows my mind because normally, well, a year ago, if I were to buy my weekly groceries because of who I am, it's $40. That's what I pay. Now it's $90, easy. And I'm not changed anything. I don't like eat more
Yeah, your
food.
keto diet is pretty basic, right? Like
Yeah, yeah. It's very, it's eggs and lettuce and stuff like that.
so
But everything's got up.
when we talk about this, I go back to this about the social engineering of all this, right? When you've got $2, when you got $2.50 gas, right, a liter, when you have all of these things that are coming down the pipe, they're going to disproportionately affect the community, right? So you're going to have people at the bottom that are going, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, and the people that are setting policy, I hate to say this, it's kind of the Marie Antoinette, we'll let them eat cake, and they don't get it. And what's going to happen, and we saw this, we talked about canary in the coal mine. We saw this with the truckers in Ottawa. They were the canary in the coal mine about the gas prices, and then the policies of locking down and the inflationary policies that were coming down the pipe. They were the canary in the coal mine. I promise you, they will not be the last ones.
No.
If you think that where we are right now is the end of this, that, people are just going to continue to pay, continue to eat, continue to do their own thing. It's not. When people are hungry, they're not happy. When people aren't happy, they find social strife to bitch about. And I promise you, it's not going to be about BLM or LGBTQ. It's not going to be those things. It's going to get violent fast. And that's my concern. That's where I think that you have society devolve. And that's where I'm saying that if we see wheat, that's why I go back to the charts. When we go to the technical stuff, you see wheat rocketing like that again.
Which affects a lot of things. Yeah.
Right. Huge.
It even affects gas.
It affects everything because your gas is made out of ethanol. What is ethanol? It's a grain product, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me pull this back up just one more time because I think that it's worth chatting about.
But I think you and we've been talking about it recently, like over the last 2 months or something. In our city, the crime rate has gone up. Just Friday, there was a stabbing right around the corner. It seems like the canary in our area is starting, it's starting to warn us because we are seeing more crime. We are seeing more devastation in our community already. And we've only gone up a fraction of what we probably will be going up in the near future here.
Well, are you watching me as I'm doing this?
I am, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am creating what's called a bull flag or a bull pennant, okay? What I'm doing is I am charting the realistic value of this wheat price, okay? So as we go through this here, we see wheat go up to and hit that the 1260, right? These are futures contracts. This isn't what you're paying for a bag of grain. This is a futures contract, right? So you have a $1260 price, okay? It pulls back down, it gets support. It comes back up to 1082, falls back down, gets support. Up to 1117, back to 1043. We get a big run up to 1220, back down to 1064. What we're doing is we're creating those lower highs, higher lows, and that creates this pennant, this flag that I've created here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I see that.
How we measure that out is the stem. Okay. That is the expected movement. Is the movement here of this to this will end up here or will end up here. Okay. So if this falls to the downside and we go back to normal, this would pick up this normal trend. Agree?
Yes.
Okay. If it doesn't, and it goes to the upside, we're going to go to a, this isn't how I usually chart this, so it's a little bit funky for me. From today, we are at a 30% increase, and I would argue it's before the end of the year. So no, another additional 30%, it's game over, guys. It's
Right.
game over. If you do that, if you add that additional 30 onto where we are now, it's game over.
And if you talk about the fact that they just said the Russia's not exporting, China is buying more wheat, Ukraine isn't growing it, and we have droughts happening.
Yep.
Those are not indicators of the grain price going down. Those are indicators of the price that's going up. And then you add to the fact that our gas prices, which transport the grain from the farmer to the manufacturer, to the other manufacturers, to the other manufacturers,
yeah,
all of those things just say go up.
So now here's a crazier thing, okay? We in Canada, we think of ourselves as the wheat belly of the world, right?
We try to, yeah, in the prairies.
Okay, so Russia and Ukraine, it's said that they create 1/3 of the wheat in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So we produce a chunk, right? I'm not going to say it's a third. The U.S. and Canada don't make up a third. China actually makes up a third. Okay. Yeah. India and China combined are the two major players. So India and China, India's got 1.5 billion people. China has 1.5 billion people. Okay.
Yeah.
What if they say we're not exporting anymore? We are going to become nationalistic in our food resources, and we go no more. We do not have the means to feed 35 million people in Canada, let alone 350 million in the States. Is this a population collapse issue, right? Because if you have these nations that are not going to, or do you have war? I hate to say this, we come back to
or
war.
you have war. Yeah.
Right.
We fought over oil. I imagine we'd fight over food. I remember when I was younger that we were talking about water was going to be the next war. We would fight over water, but maybe it'll be food. Yeah. But we're not like screaming that the world's coming to an end. I think what what Pat's saying here is that you have to be more economic wise. You have to be more planning with your money. You know, don't go out and buy a boat, or maybe instead of driving a huge truck, what was that, Pat? Or maybe instead of buying a huge truck, buy a little car.
Right. If I wish I had.
You did have one, didn't you?
Yeah,
what happened to that car? I don't know. Yeah, but also be prepared. Keep your eyes out. Watch out for those canaries. And, you know, it might not be a bad idea to stock up for a week or two at this moment. Not to mention with our natural disasters that seem to happen quite often. Like every year now, parts of Canada are shut down. Like every year. It's not the first time we've been shut down for a period of time. So it'd be wise to start. I know I've been thinking about getting a generator. You can't get one right now, but hopefully in a month or two we'll be able to get one.
I've set the mission out trying to find powdered goods, like powdered eggs and that sort of thing. And ice stores and that for like I'd like to get enough for like a couple weeks. And
camping. So Canadian Tire, if you go into the camping sets, they have all of those wonderful, wonderful foods. Actually, you can get like beef stroganoff and stuff. It's pretty good stuff.
Cool.
I'm a camper, so I know. So you just like add water, let it heat up for a while, and yum, yum, yum.
Water from?
From our storage of water. I'm going to get it from this water bottle right here. See?
There you go.
But you're right. Yeah.
I think that was
interesting.
As always.
Interesting. I think we should leave it with the fact of what is Bill Gates doing right now, because I know you've been dying to tell people. What is Bill Gates doing right now?
I know he's one of your favorites as a
love
liberal.
him.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Gates is buying a shit ton of land in all over America. He is the largest land owner.
What kind of land, though?
agricultural land. He's going out and buying
Isn't that
farm.
interesting? Yeah.
Odd. So
I
that's
would say that it's not true, but it is true. Like that's all the stuff I've seen too, is that he's buying. I don't know why he's buying it, but
yeah.
uh,
You can only have so many coincidences, and then it's kind of like, well, that may not be coincidences anymore.
yeah, when rich people start buying farmland, that just seems
Oh,
they
he's got
usually go where it is.
cowboy hat, straw. Oh, Bill.
Maybe Bill wants to become a farmer. Stranger things have
So
happened.
we've talked about this. Is Bill is a monopolistic business person. So when he sees an opportunity to monopolize an industry, right? He did that with for those of you that are a little bit
Apple.
older, right?
Yeah.
Nothing was compatible, right?
No.
So you had to go to Microsoft products, and that was a thing, right? So this is where this guy goes. He did it with the vaccine stuff. That is, I don't even know if I can say that. We're done. There'll be no yeah.
We're gonna get a disclaimer. But no, he did it with everything. He did it with so back in the day it was IBM and Apple, and IBM let their software get out so that other companies could make software for their computers, and they did quite well. And Apple, on the other hand, only let Apple people make software for it. And it was a choice. I don't know if it was a good choice. And then if you look at the phones, same thing kind of. Android has lots of manufacturers that make products for Apple. I mean, for the Android. In fact, I could make one and put it on there and sell it, but Mac does not do that. The iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So you're not right. He does monopolize.
Yeah.
So you're linking that to the farmland.
Oh, I think it's just next. I think it's the next thing. Like if you were to say that you had an organization or a company that could, have a growth in the next 6 to 8 months of 30, 40, 50%, is that worth monopolizing? This isn't something that's, Zoom, that the next technology is going to come along and the iteration is going to change everything. This is bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like it's massive. So, well, folks, as always, thank you for joining us. James, handsome as always, fella.
You too.
Out here tonight. And we will check you guys next time. And as always, we
check us out Thursday.
Oh,
around 9 o'clock. We're going to have a guest on. We're going to do a little, table talk chat. It should be interesting. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but it'll be fun. We have a nice gentleman coming on, and I can't wait to hang out with him.
Awesome. Sounds good, guys. Thank you as always. And from all of us at Soaring Profits, thank you. And let's try to make some money together, folks. Take care, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.